Idiots for Cinema presents Arrival. There are numerous videos and essays expanding how flawless and fabulous Arrival is. This is not one of those videos. It's not that I didn't enjoy the movie. I just feel there is almost always a point of story logic in every Denis Villeneuve film that seems to go unnoticed or get a pass. For instance, why did the drug dealers in Sicario hide dead bodies in the walls of a house? Why not just bury them in the desert? In Incendies, why doesn't the mother just tell the kids who their father is?
Cette enveloppe est destinée à votre père. Retrouve-le et remets-lui cette enveloppe. Simon, cette enveloppe est destinée à votre frère. Retrouve-le et remets-lui cette enveloppe.
I guess then there wouldn't be a movie. And in Prisoners, why don't Viola Davis and Terrence Howard face any consequences, even though they've also participated in the torture and confinement of Paul Dano with Hugh Jackman? This is what I call unfair story logic, like Chewbacca not getting a medal at the end of Star Wars.
Well, all the people got medals, and the Wookiee who'd been in there fighting all the time, he didn't get any medal. And I thought that was an example of anti-Wookiee discrimination.
But I digress. Arrival also has its issues with story logic, even though it is dealing with the philosophical concepts of causality versus determinism, concepts which by their very nature often defy logic. But I feel this is the forest trying to hide the fact that it is made up of trees, and all those trees are rotting, or on fire, depending what metaphor you prefer. Arrival's biggest problem is that it embraces determinism without being critical of that fact. Why would anyone want to know the future if one is powerless to change it? It sounds terrible to me. This is also the Cassandra complex, as explained by Madeleine Stowe's character in the 1995 Terry Gilliam film, 12 Monkeys.
Cassandra, in Greek legend, you recall, was condemned to know the future, but to be disbelieved when she foretold it. Hence, the agony of foreknowledge combined with the impotence to do anything about it.
12 Monkeys' concept of causality and determinism presents a depressing counterpoint to Arrival. Bruce Willis, in his first role where he was fully bald, is not sent back to stop the virus that has wiped out most of humanity in 1996, but merely to get a sample and bring it back to his present so they can create a vaccine. The past is the past, it's already happened, and Bruce Willis can't change anything, including witnessing his own death at an airport when he is a child. In Arrival, we are presented with the same idea of determinism, but instead we are supposed to find it uplifting and amazing, and not terrible and depressing. Amy Adams is given foreknowledge that she will give birth to a child that she will then watch die at a young age. Arrival posits that she is not only powerless to change this, but that the joy of having a child outweighs the premature death. I find this a hard pill to swallow. The third act of the film totally leans in on determinism. General Chang gives Amy Adams his phone number and tells her his wife's dying words so that she can call him and repeat this in the past. Which also begs the question, why is Amy Adams confused by what's happening in this scene when she already knows what's going to happen? The story logic here, again, is strained. The film presents the idea that determinism is a wonderful thing. To me, it's terrible. Knowing the future that one can't alter means there is no free will, and every event in the universe has been established since the beginning of space-time and cannot be altered. The heptapods even state that they have to teach humanity their language so that humanity can save them in 3,000 years. Given all this, why do the heptapods make it so difficult to learn their language? And why do they make it so difficult to get into their spaceship without the use of a skyjack? Why not just send the butt plug pod, as they do later in the film? Which brings us to the central element of weak sauce in the Arrival cinematic dish, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
You know, I was doing some reading about this idea that if you immerse yourself into a foreign language, that you can actually rewire your brain.
The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. The theory that it's the theory that the language you speak determines how you think. And
except I don't think we perceive time in a linear fashion because of language. We perceive time in a linear fashion because that's how the physics of the universe work. Just because you learn to think in French doesn't mean your souffle will rise.
Much too low.
Perhaps it is best to go back to Ted Chiang's Story of Your Life, upon which Arrival is based.
Knowledge of the future was incompatible with free will. What made it possible for me to exercise freedom of choice also made it impossible for me to know the future. Conversely, now that I know the future, I would never act contrary to that future, including telling others what I know. Those who know the future don't talk about it.
Wait, what? In the words of Montague Withnail,
What absolute twaddle.
I find this view of humanity terribly naive, as there will always be bad actors who would use their knowledge of the future to manipulate events to their advantage. Given all these ideas, I feel Arrival fails to connect the dots or to reach the logical conclusion the story has set up. One of the central conflicts is that the military and the CIA default to the idea that the aliens have bad intentions. The missed opportunity for Arrival would have been to give us the Twilight Zone ending. Amy Adams would realize that the heptapods have given humanity a weapon, in that the ability to see the future but to be powerless to change it will eventually lead to the destruction of the human race. The same way that Cassandra foresaw the fall of Troy, but went insane as no one would believe her. I guess, though, that would have been a different and more cynical film, but I can't help but feel that Arrival set it up that way. This brings us to the final piece of story illogic. In Arrival, one cannot change the past by knowing the future. Amy Adams knows she is going to have a child with Jeremy Renner, and that the child will die. In fact, we learn in the scene that her relationship to Renner has ended because she has told him the future.
It's my fault. I told him something that he wasn't ready to hear.
Is Jeremy Renner so upset with Amy Adams that he is not present for the death of his own daughter? He is not shown in the opening sequences so as to fool us later by revealing it's not a flashback, but in fact a flash forward. The film's cleverness cannot overcome its stupidity in the end by doing this. Or are we to believe that Jeremy Renner is a really terrible human being and the worst father in the universe? Or is it just another flaw in the storytelling that we are either not supposed to notice or not supposed to criticize? Certainly that would be consistent with the rest of Denis Villeneuve's movies.
If you hated this video, please unlike and unfollow for less.